Welcome to No Holding Back with me, Susan Estrich, the podcast where I bring you the biggest names from the worlds of media, politics, and law. We dive into unfiltered, unapologetic, and insightful conversations. I speak my mind and I encourage my guests to do the same. No topic is off limit as we dive into the issues that shape our world. Today we have a truly inspiring guest with us. Scott Huffman is a two-time Democratic nominee for Congress, running in both 2020 and 2022 to represent North Carolina's 8th Congressional District. His journey into politics is one driven by his deep desire to give a voice to the everyday citizens of North Carolina, working families, veterans like him, and those who are often overlooked by the political establishment. Scott's campaign wasn't just about party politics. It was about fighting policies that work for everyone, fighting for policies that work for everyone, not just the privileged few. Despite the challenges of running a grassroots campaign in a competitive district, Scott's resilience and message resonated with many. In today's conversation, we'll talk about what inspired Scott to get into politics, the realities of running today in today's polarized climate, and how we can deal with democracy going forward. Scott, congratulations to you. Running twice for Congress is really something. Are you going to do it a third time, you think?
Oh, well, technically, I did three times. I ran prior to 2020, and it was a primary, and I lost in the primary. I came in
So
second
you've done
place.
three times.
I've done three times, yeah. And
Are you out after three, or are you
you,
still
you
in
know,
there?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not out of participating in the process, continuing to be a voice for people in my community, and try to let people know the threats to our democracy that are currently underway as we speak. And this isn't just a normal process. Like AOC said, this is a five alarm fire, and everybody needs to start paying attention. Uh, you know, for me, running for a candidate, I wanted I'm a working class candidate. My mother was a truck stop waitress, raising three kids off of tips and what she made. I had an absent father in my life. So, I'm a product of, a good community, neighbors, uncles, aunts, helping us, when, we needed the help. And, my mother, she had her birthday Monday. She was 88 years old, still kicking. She's tough as
God
nails,
bless.
a cancer survivor, and she inspires me every day. And a lot of the things that help ground me came from her. And she not only wore two hats as a mom and a dad, but she was also, somebody who stood up to what was going on. And, as a father, my first child was a daughter, and a little girl. She's wonderful. She graduated high school last year, and she's trying to figure out where she wants to go. But she has less rights than my mother did.
Isn't
And
that
this,
amazing?
it is. And in such a short time, it went from where my mother has rights to her own decisions and everything and what she can do with her body. I just am just horrified for the future that my daughter and my two young boys are going to have to deal with. I mean, um, and I stood on that foundation as I talked to people about why I was running and what I wanted to work for and help people. We still have financial issues, people struggling. Inflation has been a terrible thing to happen, and I don't blame the political mainstream on this. What I blame is corporate greed, and we need to recognize that. I mean, I went into Walmart to buy some eggs, and the price of eggs in just a 2 week period. And my 17-year-old who plays on the football team, and man, that kid can go through some food. So, with
You're
that
buying a
said,
lot of eggs, huh,
yeah,
Scott?
me being a nerd, and I'm always kind of straight to the point, data. I don't mess around. I talk about facts. I mean, I was buying eggs where the eggs were 21 cents a piece, and now they're 37 cents a piece. So, and that's, we've got issues going on with the bird flu, different stuff. and we've got a run amok administration that's doing everything they can to tear down progress of generations from when I was a kid, civil rights and voting rights and women's rights and protecting people's privacy and all those things. I made a post on Twitter. I still call it there, still call it Twitter, but
I do too.
I made a post that everyone's identity was stolen over the weekend, and we know who did it.
We know
Everyone
exactly who
has
did it.
stolen identity. Yeah. And so I'm filing complaints everywhere. I've already written a letter to the congressman in my district who uh, uh, won an easy election because of gerrymandering here in North Carolina. And let's face the facts. I ran in a gerrymander district twice. And, I tried to defeat Ted Budd, who's gone on to be a North Carolina senator, and I tried to defeat Dan Bishop. Dan Bishop's a very extreme right wing nut job, and I mean, thank God he lost his election as North Carolina Attorney General. We have a great person in that
Hmm.
position, Jeff Jackson. He was also, he's famous off of TikTok. He's famous off of Twitter and some of the things he did during some freezing weather where there's no one in session at the General Assembly. And, I believe he's leading that department. And, just look at the election results in North Carolina. We had Democrats in the top seats of council, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary, and we had some very horrible people running for those positions. Moms for Liberty, teach at school kind of person who never served in school, made it to the superintendent election. Thank God she lost. She's Moms for Liberty, crazy person. And then we had, and I call it like it is. We had a black Nazi running for governor, Mark Robinson.
We did have
And
a black Nazi running for governor, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Something. I mean, I don't know what you call him, a Nazi or not, but you
Well,
had
he
a
admitted to being a
bad
black Nazi, and yeah,
yeah,
he admitted to, hey, maybe this guy was right over there in 1937, and just so
wow,
so much extremist.
unbelievable,
Yeah, he would target
unbelievable.
LGBT community. I have friends that are really wonderful people, and I don't know why they've gone after this 1% people so they
I
can
don't
feel
know. I know
powerful.
it's really mean, isn't it? But
Yeah,
it
well,
moves, it moves the vote 2 or 3% by convincing people that you and I don't represent them,
yeah,
and Kamala Harris didn't represent them. That she
yeah.
represented some elite, strange other group that the Democratic Party lost the votes, frankly, of people like your mother and people like her kids and people from working families. We just
Mhm.
lost those votes.
Yeah. And see, that's what's really sad because when you look at the numbers of the final results, Trump only won by around 300,000 votes. So, we had Democrats that didn't show up. And
Right.
what is it? And let's just face it, I really think it's a result of their, these people don't believe a woman should be a president of the United States of America. But they're okay with criminals and rapists and all that stuff being the president.
You think it was
Uh,
sexism? You think it was frankly sexism still?
listen, it was sexism, it was racism, it was
It was
all those
classism.
things.
It was all kinds of things. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we became the party of the educated.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have the educated on your side, but we've always been the party, at least in my years in politics, of working people. And
Hmm.
we just lost that this time around.
Yeah,
Working people didn't
yeah.
feel like the Democrats represented them. But Scott, how do you change that? How do you get up every morning and change that?
Well, let's face facts. We have a MAGA movement, a fascist MAGA movement that's based off of nationalized national Christian nationalism. And
Right.
how do you reason with those people? Because they have gone to a point that they believe that magic Jesus is going to give them a car, magic Jesus is going to do all these things and believe me, I'm not critical of people's religion. I believe, I was brought up in the Catholic faith, and um I believe that's a personal thing to deal with. I don't walk around here saying, hey, I'm a Catholic, hey, we talk about this, this, and this. I never do any of that because my faith and my spiritual journey is mine and mine alone. And so I don't try to force my views on anybody. I don't believe in any of that. I try to be, I try to just be accepting. And what we're running across is a group of people who are intolerant
But
of.
not to put a fine a point on it, but Scott, I would have voted for you in North Carolina. I know you ran in a gerrymandered district, but we got a lot of gerrymandered districts around this country. And we've got a lot of people in Congress who don't share your views and mine.
Yeah.
And right now we're in danger. I saw Ezra Klein had a great column last week where he found this old Steve Bannon quote in which in 2019 he was telling Frontline that the key to getting things done for Trump would be to flood the zone. And that's what he called it, flooding the zone
Yeah.
every day with so much bad news, so many bad things he's doing, so many things he has the power, he claims, to
Mhm.
do, that the media and people like you and me just couldn't pay attention to all of it.
Yeah.
And if you flood the zone, you'll overwhelm us. Is that true? Is that what's happening now?
Oh, absolutely. Every day they're doing something, and let's look at this. It's not only flooding the zone, but it's a psychological operation because the more you give people bad news, the more you do things, the emotional level, the engagement starts to withdraw.
Right.
And I said I said something very I said that uh, you know they're feeding off of fear, and we have nothing to fear. And we know who said that was President Roosevelt said we have nothing to fear but fear itself, and that's how they feed. It's they go to the trough, they throw fear out there, and of course we're giving them what they need to feed off of that because oh my God, we're afraid. No, we
We
shouldn't be
are
afraid.
afraid, aren't we? I
We
mean, but
well, we
Scott,
should be afraid, but we
how can
should.
you not be afraid? I mean, you've got these, children basically who work for Peter Thiel, who are
Mhm.
like 18 and 20 and 24,
Yeah,
and they've taken over the federal government payroll system.
and not only
You know the
that,
identity of every person in this country, and
yeah,
they don't have security clearances even. I mean, this
it,
is craziness.
crazy. Well, that's an abject failure of Trump allowing I mean, let's face it, Trump sold the presidency to Elon Musk. I mean, it's really President Musk, President
Well,
Elon.
Musk is threatening everybody in Congress with a primary if they
Mhm.
don't do Trump's bidding. And you
Yeah,
know, and I know that the most important thing to members of Congress is being there and
right.
getting reelected every 2 years or every
Yep.
6 years in the Senate.
Well,
So
it's
you've
interesting they
got a
talk about
billionaire
term
with
limits.
unlimited funds saying,
Mhm.
we'll primary you if you vote the other way. And they all say, how high do I have to jump?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see it. And that's the sad part about this cult movement and this extremism that we're seeing within the Republican Party in the ranks. I mean, Trump just released how many 1,500 people who wanted to overthrow the government for the very first time. We
But,
had the
but,
Confederate
but
flag,
got their sentences pardoned. I mean,
Mhm.
these were people who stormed violent criminals who attacked the police.
Killed the
Imagine
police.
they were black, what he would have done. He
Mhm.
certainly wouldn't have issued that many pardons to Black Lives Matter. And
No,
they were
not at
on the
all.
street. Not
Yeah,
a, not a one.
he would have wanted to blame him. He would blame him for
Yeah.
it. I mean, he blamed DEI on the airplane crash that absolutely had nothing to do with it, and then he attacked the people. Then he attacked the made negative comments about the helicopter, the pilot. She's a North Carolina resident. Was bless her heart, she's gone in that crash. And just one thing, the army captain who lost her life in that helicopter. Her vote is actually being targeted by Judge Griffin, who's trying to cancel 65,000 votes here in North Carolina to win his seat that he lost to Justice Riggs, Allison Riggs, and she won by 730 votes, 34 votes. And they're trying to make up this technicality that because veterans didn't send their ID in, a copy of their ID in with their ballot, mail-in ballot that they've used for years, it shouldn't count. But guess what? North Carolina didn't require them to send in their ID with this ballot if they were military. So you can't go back and change the rule after you already told someone they could cast their vote.
And that vote is being challenged. That's just outrageous, Scott. So tell me, you get these outrages. Every time I do this show lately, I hear of another outrage. What do you do about it? I think a lot of people right now are turning off their radios or turning off their televisions and not reading their social media feeds because they just don't want to deal with it. And that's what Donald Trump is counting on, is
Well,
that
yeah.
people are going to be turned off and they're going to say, I can't handle this. And they're going to just, let them get away with it. How do you stop them?
Well, you're not going to be able to stop Trump. The only way we're going to be able to stop Trump is either with a Big Mac and he has, he eats it or something. But you
No, but
know,
that would be worse. Then we
but
get banned.
with Jed Vance, who's just even more
Even worse.
worse. But with that said, we stop him through the courts. We need Democrats to stand up like they did and went to the USAID office, went to the Treasury Department, and did all these things. That is what will give people strength. That will show people that they're not alone and we can stand up to this extremism. One of the things that Trump is already realizing, he's already taking things back that he's already tried to do with what he did with Canada and Mexico with these tariffs. Now, I hate to say I like what the Chinese are doing. They're retaliating and they're following through. And the best thing about what happened with these tariffs with Trudeau and the president of Mexico, they were already doing these things that Trump wanted, and now he gets to take credit for it. So that's all he wants to do. He wants to take credit for a problem he created and claim he fixed it. So we've seen that behavior over and over again. And what's interesting is that Congress is advocating their power to him right now as we speak. I wrote a letter to my congressman, Addison McDowell in District 6, who went unchallenged because Republicans in North Carolina gerrymandered this district so much that there's no point running. The numbers were there
Don't
for
add
him to
up.
win.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but how do we continue to do this? Well, we do
You
this
write
what
him a
I
letter, but somebody told me the best thing to do is to call, not write letters, because the
well,
letters just
well,
get you a robo response back.
well,
I
of
used to
course.
send those letters out when I worked in the Senate. And if
Well,
you call, they at least count your call. But you call and you say, don't do it. And these guys have Elon Musk on the other line saying,
mhm,
do it for me.
yeah, yeah.
And what do you do?
Well, you continue to show people there's hope. You continue to show people that you're not alone. And one of the things that I've been doing and talking to my group of folks is that we're organizing to make sure that we stay engaged and we show up. When you show up, they don't like that. So we're showing up at his office. We're going in groups of 5 people and we're going every day. We're going to show up every day.
For you.
And we're also making phone calls and writing letters. We're doing those are all the tools in our arsenal. They want to take those tools away. I'll give you an example. In the form field area of his website for Congress, you can only do 2,000 characters.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he tries to limit you on what you can say in the message, and so people need to be aware of that and make sure that when they do their messaging, they make their point, their summary, and then they get it and submit it, and then hit the next one. Keep hitting them because these all become public record. They are public record. So then I took my letter, I posted it on social media.
Good.
Everybody now has an example to write another letter. And then I'm promoting people to file complaints with the US Treasury about our identity theft being stolen by Elon Musk and his Doge 18-year-old hackers. And this is one thing that's really concerning because I expressed my concern about unforeseeable circumstances. We are already learning that over 10 million names have been sold on the web by one of these hackers. So they're
Really?
making money. I got to go back and find the reference source. It's on my other computer behind me. But the I read the article. They talked about all the different things they've done, and some of these names have already shown up on the dark web that weren't there before. So again, this is the largest identity theft ever occurred, and they unlocked the doors and gave it to them. It isn't like they
Well,
hacked the computer.
it's everybody's identity in this country. They unlock the
Yep.
doors.
Even my children, because the day you're
Right,
born, they give you a social security number now.
right.
So everyone, everyone.
Everyone. And
And
why
it's
are people, why is social media become so much the dominating force in social media is the right wing? It is not us. We do not control social media, and more people get their news these days from social media than any other source.
mhm.
And liberals have been caught with their pants down. Why?
Well, um, I wish I had an answer, but I can tell you I do information technology, cybersecurity services. I'm the
Mhm.
director of technology at an HBCU in Salisbury, North Carolina called Livingstone College. They hired me a couple years ago and we've been working, and it's actually a very challenging job to keep the Russians out of our computers. But
Right.
what we need to learn is Putin is doing his 4D strategy of, I think it's dismay. The 4Ds is what he calls it. I can't remember the words, but they're doing this propaganda strategy. And the fact that they're no longer doing fact checking on Facebook now means that we're going to see a higher propaganda. So what we've got to do is when we see that message, we got to immediately challenge it and call it out for what it is, propaganda. Like there was this guy talking about how the tariffs were going to be good for everybody and that the prices will go up just a little bit. Well,
It's a
guess
little
what?
pain.
They're going to stay there. And Trump has acknowledged they're going to stay there because of the fact that he says, well, once they go up, it's hard to get them back down. He's not even trying. He's not. The thing he's doing is the very thing he denied he knew anything about, and that's Project 2025. Everything they're doing is exactly out of the playbook. And I'll never forget this guy who wrote the book Project 25. He said, this will be a bloodless process if the
Right.
Democrats let it happen. And I'm like, so you're ready to use physical force to force your stuff upon half of America. I I I I really think we're seeing an awakening within the Republican people that they're actually going to be victimized by the very guy they saw. And if we can get that message out there that look, it's not you're not owning the libs, you're hurting yourself. That's
Well,
great, you're hurting us too, but you're not owning the libs here. Trump owns you, and that's the thing you need to understand. And once we go full fascism, you'll never get back to democracy. And the only way to get back to democracy is there'll be a revolution or a civil war.
I don't want to even think about that. Do
I don't want
you?
to think about it either. But listen, one of the, in the community I live in, they always talk about how the city of Charlotte seems to have gun violence and all this stuff. And I live near the I used to live near UNCC College, and I lived there for 16 years before my wife and I had to move out of the area because the housing prices were going up. And we found a house up here in Rowan County, and the first thing I noticed was I kept hearing gunfire. Well, there's a gun range right near our home, and I can't go out on a Saturday morning, enjoy a cup of coffee, and sit on my deck and enjoy a private morning in the morning because some Yahoo is over there shooting off his weapons. And this is the thing, I, you know, when I see somebody with their gun, I go up to them and I said, "Hey, man, is everything okay? See, you got your weapon. Is there anything I need to be aware of in that grocery store?" You know, I said,
In that
why
grocery,
do you
you
think you
got your
need to?
weapon in the grocery store?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, North Carolina Republicans have worked hard to relax gun laws. They're actually now considering a law that means you can conceal weapons without going through concealed carry training. And that's really sad. As a gun owner, as a veteran who's used these kind of weapons, it's sad. It's so sad. And this is how we could actually end gun violence. I mean, I have to have a talk with my son, two boys, every time they go to school when there's been a gun shooting and something's happened
Sure.
or a weapon. And, when I was growing up, the only kind of drills we had were fire drills and tornado drills. We never had active shooter drills in a school.
No.
And
The
and
idea
that's,
that these kids have to learn to drop and cover for
yeah,
active shooter drills when they're in elementary school is
yeah.
terrifying.
It's
It's
terrifying that our
terrifying.
children are going in. Yeah, exactly. But I challenged that guy with his gun, and this is the thing that really just irks them. They can't stand it when you talk to them in a way that just they cannot stand for their feelings to be hurt. Because, if you're an intolerant person and you don't like people of color, Asians, LGBT community, any of that stuff, you're going to hate it because I'm intolerant of your intolerance. And I call them out right there. And I just basically, you'll probably beat me out. But, I asked this guy, I said, why do you bring your gun out in public and masturbate with it? Because that's exactly what you're doing. Okay. If you
Love
fly
it,
a
Scott.
flag, you're masturbating because this is, and I'm like, I don't care, and I challenge these veterans who are flying these flags with Blue Lives Matter on it. I'm not afraid to challenge them. And see, that's the thing. That gets back to my earlier statement. Are you really afraid of these people, or do you need to know how to handle them? And when I challenge them on these guns, I talk to them about this. I agree. I will not, as a Democrat, want to ever take your guns away from you. But what I want to do is protect our children in schools, protect people from harm. We have got to make sure there's accountability with a weapon of death. And if you idolize that weapon of death, it's no more than idolizing a golden calf. And so, I mean, to me, uh, 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 we've got to have reasonable discussions. But it's hard. It's really
But
hard.
it's very hard. Let me ask you a last question because I've taken up a
Oh,
half an hour
wow.
of your
This has
time.
been so much fun.
It is fun. I love having you. You have to come back. But let
Sure.
me ask you this question. When I'm on social media, it feels like I'm in a bubble. And all I'm seeing are the comments of the other Democrats who think that Trump is the worst and Trump is this and Trump is that. And I know that in my bubble, that's what I hear. But there's another bubble out there that's bigger than mine, in which Trump is, celebrated and elevated, and the likes of me are put down. How do we get in their bubble?
We don't. We don't. What we have to do is realize that that bubble is going to break when we can show up in numbers. If I mean, think about it. We could have burst their bubble if we could have elected Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and given. I mean, uh, Ben Strange. I met him at an HBCU function a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about the election and talking about the infrastructure bill and how it was going to rebuild the middle class. It was going to take some time, but
Right.
he said if we could have kept a Democrat in the White House for another 8 years, we can bring the middle class back.
I
That's what
believe
we're.
that, but we
Yeah,
didn't.
and
But the
he's
middle
the
class didn't
CEO of
believe
this. Yeah, he's the CEO of the Sierra Club. Wonderful talker. He was the president of the NAACP at one time in his career. But when he said that, I believed him. And guess who is benefiting by the infrastructure act that Biden passed? Major Taylor Greene. My wife was born in Dalton, Georgia,
it.
and they
Mhm.
have built a high-end chip producing factory there that hired 1,800 people, and then that 1,800 people that were part of that factory created another 9,000 jobs that
Right, of
support
course.
that through restaurants, grocery stores, automobile shops, hair
Sure.
salons,
That's
all
how
that stuff.
growth works.
And that's what Democrats are good at, but we don't know how to talk about it. And see, that's what we've got to get back on. We've got to get our messaging that Democrats have historically all the time created jobs and made lives better for the working class. And we can see the disaster of the Republicans giving tax breaks, tax breaks, tax
Right,
breaks. So
right.
anyway,
Anyway, Scott, you're a national treasure and keep at it. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. You've got to come back.
sure,
Um,
anytime.
I think that spirit and that energy is what we need to fight this guy. Because otherwise, as I say, don't let him do it. I mean, I don't know what anything else we can do but stand up there and fight back.
Yeah, and we have to. This is the best advice I'll give anybody. And this is what inspired me to stay on message. Don't ever throw your punches at your opponent walking backwards.
Don't bring a toothbrush to a knife fight. You've been listening to Scott Huffman on No Holding Back with me, Susan Estridge. I want to take this moment to thank Scott for being such a fabulous guest and also for all the work you've done for our democracy in North Carolina. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch every episode Scott and I are going to be on Smiling on our YouTube channel. Please leave a rating and review because this is how social media works, and it really helps us reach more people and keep the conversation going. Follow us on X or Twitter, as we prefer to call it, at No Holding Back FM. And for my weekly column, visit our website, estridgegolden.com. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Scott, for joining us. And I'll see you next time on No Holding Back.